You're the parent of an intellectually disabled child with Down syndrome, brain damage, autism, ADHD, AUDHD, Tourette's, to name a few. And you've just completed one of the hardest parts of parenting. You're getting your child through high school, a Herculean effort. But now what? What comes next? They have no social network because that existed when your child was in school. How are they going to find one? There are no activities for your child to participate in because that all came from school too. And if your child wants to go anywhere, you're going to have to drive them. So your job isn't over. It's beginning in a new phase of your child's life. You'll have to create community for them outside the family, or will the family be your child's only source of community and activity? Where will they live? At your house? For how long? And employment, where will they work? What will they do? Do you, as their parents, recognize their skills and talents, and are you able to package them and market them so that your child works with purpose in God-given skills and talents? Probably not. You're probably going to have to rely on others, but who are those others who can network your child to find employment that gives them purpose and then opens the door to a social life and a place to live? We have as our guest today an answer to all of these questions. Dr. Joseph Ryan, Executive Director and founder of Clemson Life, a school within Clemson University in South Carolina. Clemson Life is a nationwide model for post-secondary education for students with intellectual disabilities by providing collegiate experiences, competitive employment, preparation, and independent living through a combination of on-campus academic coursework and career exploration. And oh my God, what a gold mine you are. Thank you, Dr. Ryan, and welcome to the program.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh my
Half the
gosh.
job is educating society, and as much as it is educating our students.
Well, this is going to be a pleasure to introduce what you're doing to the audience. So, before we get into the programs that you offer and how they work, can you just do one thing, please, and explain the underlying philosophy behind Clemson Life?
Sure. Well, first of all, LIFE stands for Learning is for Everyone. And so, again, as you said, it's a post-secondary education program for young adults with intellectual disabilities. And our mission statement's been simple for the 17 years we've been in existence, is to increase the employment and independent living outcomes for individuals with intellectual disabilities. Overall, it's a pretty abysmal rate. It's anywhere from 14 to 20% of individuals with ID are employed. 97% of our graduates are employed afterwards, and about two-thirds are living independently. So we're very proud of how effective the program has been in getting these young men and women to be contributing members of society.
And that's interesting because there's a video on your website about a Down syndrome gentleman who always wanted to pledge a fraternity, and one fraternity pledged him. And the guys in that fraternity said it was the best thing they'd ever done. And I mean, as I say this, I tear up. And even in part of your materials, you say we have to educate society first, and then things can flow as they should. But what you're doing is what so many people need to understand, and that is just give them a chance. Talk to them. Talk to them as you would talk to anybody. Give them the opportunities you would give to anybody, but with a different type of approach and education, correct?
Yeah, we're very proud of our relationship with the sororities and fraternities on campus here. So they've done a tremendous job, the young men and women of these fraternities and sororities, in opening up their houses to individuals, our students, Clemson Life students. We just had an open house here last weekend, and we asked our students that were in attendance, that we had over 300 families coming in from across the country, And we asked our students how many were members of fraternities and sororities, and about a quarter raised their hand now of our students. We have 56 students. So about a quarter of those members. And again, there's no guarantee you're going to join, just like every traditional student there. I mean, those are the challenges in life. You may get accepted, you may not get accepted, but they're given the opportunity to participate in those events on campus. And that's just like one sample of what the students have an opportunity to participate with on Clemson University. So we're
I
very
love.
proud of the university, and especially the young men and the students, traditional students, who've really embraced our students here.
I know that was just wonderful to see. It's so heartwarming. I loved it. A quick question before we get into the programs you offer.
Sure.
It's people graduate from high school with intellectual disabilities at different ages. Some may do it at 18, some may do it a couple years after that. Are you flexible with ages of people applying?
By all means, yes. So most of our incoming students are probably in the early 20s. So our application is open to anywhere from 18 years to 26 years of age for incoming freshmen that we take into the Clemson Life program there. So again, many parents have this ability to stay until 21 years of age. And that's a common question that they'll ask is like, should I take my son, leave, give a certificate or whatever from high school and go on to post-secondary education? And it's really a personal thing that the student, the family have to answer. As long as they're still progressing, then by all means, stay with the high school experience. But if your son or daughter is plateaued at that point, well, then it's time for something else. In other words, and that's kind of where we do is we're heavy on employment, heavy on independent living skills to get them ready for the real world.
All right, that's really interesting. I didn't know that you could actually leave high school if you've kind of reached a point, as you said, plateaued. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, so and many of them, so they be 18, 19 years old, they can still stay on a little bit longer till 21 till they age out. But if they're not making any more progress or what have you, then it's time for the next stage in life.
Okay, so
Next
now let's
challenge.
thank you. So let's talk about the programs now. You have the basic program and the advanced program, starting with the basic functional academics. I
Yes,
really
so let me just
focused
give
on
a
that.
30,000-foot overview if I can, just so
Sure.
the viewers at home have a good understanding of what it is. So when we come into the Clemson Life program, is again we have a 2-year basic program, and in that program is essentially the students who live on campus. We have 4-bedroom apartments and residential, and they live with an independent living assistant, an ILA we'll call them. It's basically an RA on steroids. So everything that my instructors are teaching, the students during the daytime, the ILAs reinforce those skills in the evening and over the weekend area. So they
Hmm.
have everything there. So they have full kitchenettes, they have washer dryer in there. So all these skills can often be taught right in the apartment itself and then reinforced by the ILAs. And so again, the young men and women have responsibilities, chores every single day, from the cleaning to the cooking and everything else. And they're probably without doubt the cleanest college apartments that you'll ever see of any campus across the United States there, because they're being monitored and graded on this on a daily basis there. So, but for the first 2 years, it's heavy on functional academics, on teaching independent living and employment skills. And we start out with the employment component of giving them internships for short periods of time for the first semester, and then it increases as it goes on. So what happens is it's heavy functional academics, and then basically the employment's low. And then as they progress through the program, the employment gets more and more. And so what's happening by the time they get into the advanced program, they're working 25 plus hours a week in paid employment jobs out within the community. And so their academics is being stepped down. The basic program, they're living on campus, but to master those skills, you have to move off campus and practice those skills in apartments.
Oh.
So if Judith and Joe demonstrate safety, you're not leaving doors open, you're not leaving the stoves on and things of that
Hmm.
nature in the first 2 years. It's an invite program only for the advanced. So for those that are going to demonstrate they can be safely live independently on their own, they get invited back and we move them off campus. And now we just monitor them into the local community. So we don't have an independent living assistant living with them anymore. So they pick roommates, whoever they want to in the local community. But we will monitor to make sure that they're still doing the grocery shopping, the cleaning, and everything along those lines. Laundry, everything else is being monitored as long as in addition to their budgets. And then basically by the time they graduated at 4 years, They've already been living on their own. They've been employed for 25 plus hours a week. It's a nice transition. It's easy. And this is why our graduates are so successful with 97% employment rate. They're already living in the real world. They're ready for it. So it's entertaining if you talk to our students and you go, especially the seniors, go, what was your most fun year? They'll always say, freshman year, because you're at every basketball game, football game, you're going to all the parties and activities and everything else. And they go, so what happened to senior year? I was like, well, I couldn't go. I was working. I'm like, welcome to the real world, buddy. That's what it's all about. In other words, is that nice transition that we built up there for in other words, is working a full-time job is like running a marathon. So you have to build up those skill sets slowly over the time period of the 4-year course there. And also to identify what industry that they're going to succeed in, not only what their desires are, but also what their strengths and limitations are. So our employment instructors work well with that in the basic program to identify that and then build them up in that industry, get them ready for the real world afterwards.
Okay, two things with that. That is brilliant.
Sure.
Do most of the students go from the basic to the academic? What's the
That's a great
percentage?
question. It's about 2/3. It varies each year.
Okay.
And again, it's tough to determine. So some are clearly going to make that jump. They'll be able to. Others are marginal. And so we'll work with the counselor and the parents to identify those skill set that Joey maybe needs to catch up. Judith is wonderful. We think she's going to operate and function well in society and safely. Joe has some issues we're concerned with, or what have you there. In other words, is what supports is he necessary to make? And so that's always a challenging thing. In other words, but we have to make sure we want Joe to fail, but we're going to have a safety net underneath him there. But when you move out into the local community there without having an independent living assistant, that support's going to be gone. And we're just monitoring it. So we have to make sure that he or she's going to be safe out in the community. So anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 will be invited back to the AP program.
I think that's a really good percentage. I mean, in the world of
I would
successful
always love to be
percentages,
higher. I think everybody should be out. I'm a little upset with the 97%. I think everybody should be employed afterwards, 100%. But basically, we understand that not everybody is going to be able to be living safely
right.
independently, but we're going to prepare them to live as independently as possible because the crux of the whole matter is, and I think you've mentioned this in previous podcasts that you've had, is nobody's going to take care of your son or daughter as well as you are when you pass. And so it's basically parents' own mortality that's basically going to lead up to the decision is, am I preparing Joe or Judith for the best possible life without me afterwards? And our goal, point blank, is, our program, director, Erica was just telling the parents as they came in, 300 families, is our goal is your kids don't go back to you at the end of this program. In other words, it's just
Yeah.
like every other son and daughter. It's like they're not coming home afterwards. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow for many parents
Yeah.
who've been doing so much for these kids' lives that many times the kids have become dependent upon that. And our job is to break that umbilical cord. So, your son and daughter is going to be very independent at the end of the program. And so that's where you see the huge growth and the maturity of the young men and women is even by the time, Turkey Day, when they go back after the first semester or so is, the parents are just seeing incredible growth with their son or daughter.
And the individuals are so proud of themselves in terms of what they've accomplished, and they can see the difference in their growth, can't they?
Without doubt. And it's
Yeah.
funny as one, we always have a parent speak at our open houses, because again, it is to arrest the anxiety within the parents, you've cared for this, and because our kids come from 13 different states, in other words, we have parents who are dropping their kid off from California, from New York and everywhere else, and basically going back there and, to reduce the anxiety of the parents. And so they're very entertaining as they're coming in. They go, we stressed, our young daughter was, 20 years old. We're dropping her off. And then we came back here to present, to talk to you folks. And we go, would you like to go out to lunch? And she goes, no, I'm going with my friends. They got the stiff arm, the Heisman arm there. It's like, but that's what you want. You want them to
Yeah.
have true, and this is, I think, the
Yeah.
big difference you'll see between our program here at college and within high school is in high school they have kind of like the hallway friends. They see them in the hallway,
Mhm.
they may be friends or everything else, but they're not coming home with them and hanging out with them, going to the parties and everything else. And here is they're fully integrated within the university culture, from fraternities and sororities to all the other different types of clubs and organizations we have. Is we actually have the largest student organization on campus now. It's called Volunteers for Life. And we have over 650
Right.
traditional students who
Yeah.
volunteer each semester to help out everything from being a lunch buddy to being a workout buddy. And they go, I got Joe who wants to go work out in the gym. And then Judith goes, hey, I work out, I lift Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4. And we connect the two, and we have a whole student organization that does nothing but that. Judith wants to learn how to bake. Send out an email. Who's really good at baking skills or whatever that would like to work with Judith in the apartments or what have you. And you have basically hook up on the different, responsibilities for the volunteers to work with our young students. So it
And
works out really good.
and what you just said, it encased in everything was a focus on wellness, and that's something that I think is very difficult for the family to deal with. When you have somebody with intellectual disabilities, they're not active in the community generally. They spend a lot of time inside, therefore overeating. The computers are on. And what you just described was a really fun way to have health. I mean, I love
Yeah,
that.
we really promote healthy lifestyles. Again, the obesity rate, especially of certain disabilities, is
Yeah,
out of control.
yeah.
2/3, I think, for Down syndrome population there. And so we get them involved in healthy lifestyles. We get them involved in whether it be Zumba, yoga, or whatever. We try to identify what interests they have in activities and get them involved from the very first to start here at freshman year. We also teach cooking. And so we have, again, my special ed teachers are not cooking experts. They may be good. I'm not going to give them anything, but we have health nutrition science majors come in and teach cooking to them. So they understand, and they have basically a menu that they can cook for breakfast, lunch, and dinner by the time they graduate of the healthy lifestyle choices. So we teach grocery shopping, we teach budgeting, we teach everything along the skills. And, Courtney, one of my favorite instructors here, I've had it for years or what have you, but she's good. Basically every year they reassess the curriculum. And if they're not using it in their real life, then we're not teaching it. So everything is really applicable to the real world that we're teaching at Clemson Life at every year.
Let's go to the employment piece because I think you and I agree. And I was so happy to hear you say this when we met and talked. And that is employment is everything. Through employment, you make money. Well, you have purpose, first of all, especially if you're finding employment that uses your skills and talents. You have purpose and direction. You have hope. You have money. Therefore, you can sustain yourself to a certain degree and you make your friends through employment. But what you're doing with employment is so unique. I need you to describe that whole program.
Well, we have several different capacities in employment, but what we do mesh really well is we have a hospitality certificate program. Because probably one of the highest turnover in industries is hospitality. It's an 80% annual turnover. And that's costly to the employers. It's brutal for the workforce. You constantly train them. They're leaving there because most of them are not making a career for it. They only want to work for the semester to make some money or whatever, waitressing, whatever it may be, and then they're out
True.
of there.
Right.
Well, it's a beautiful mix for our program. The simple fact is our students have outperformed and will outperform traditional workforce, especially certain tasks, and especially if it's repetitive tasks, which is very common within the hospitality industry itself. So we've partnered with restaurants, hotels, and everything else. They get national certifications. So basically, where you go back to the 13 states, wherever you came from, and the industry understands what these certifications you're trained for, whether it be hotel, restaurant industry, or what have you. But basically, it's a beautiful match. We have people will intentionally go to specific restaurants or eateries or what have you just to see our students. It makes their
Yep.
day. And so we have some people that are outstanding front people day, to group people, at the cashier and everything else. And you have others, maybe they're not front people, but they're outstanding workers in the back room or what have you. So they were
Mm-hmm.
much more better doing maintenance or something along those lines. So that's what the employment structure is, to find what the skills that Judith has and what her desires are and what Joe's are, and we match. And you may be the front person. You may be greeting everybody at the bank or at the pizza shop or whatever else, and I may be more in the back room going, okay, you're going to work with. We have a lot of people with facilities, work maintenance and facilities, painting and
Mm-hmm.
things of minor maintenance, and
Mm-hmm.
that works based on the strengths of the individual. But again, everybody's happy. And I remember the facilities director, the first time we placed somebody, was very leery. And then after the end of the semester, I met him at another meeting on campus. He goes, you send as many as you want. Because they have that same issue. High turnover, people not showing up and everything else. Our guys are early. They're early every single time because they get graded on it. They have a behavior plan here, and you can't be late. A minute late for class means you're late. And if you're consistently late, guess what? You get fired. So there's no points, and privileges and everything else are based on the behavior management system that we have that are in place for people to perform in the workforce, in the apartments, and in class. And so we monitor their performance across all environments.
Well, I just know from my nephew John, who has been my inspiration for this show. I just love him to death. He's 40 years old now, but he was hired at a grocery store in Pittsburgh. That was his first big job, and he was there for 15 years. Well, they had him be a bagger. But what he did as he evolved in the position and became very comfortable with everybody in the process, his soft skills, his personality, his desire to help people came through. And I can't go anywhere in Pittsburgh with him without him knowing somebody somewhere. It's incredible, the people who connect with him and look forward to seeing him. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And it really bothered him if access, which was the transportation vehicle that so many people use, if they were late, because sometimes it's a little uncertain, very upset that he wasn't going to be there early. So, what you're saying, I've watched him go through, um, proud of his job, doesn't want to be late. Everybody loves him in the store. And so I credit the store for giving him a chance. I really do. Okay, now
And that's the
getting the,
beauty of the volunteers that we have is we're really educating the next generation out there of the workforce because within 5 to 10 years they're going to be the ones doing the hiring in the different industries. And so having seen the benefits that these young men and women bring to the university and to the employment sites out there, it's going to be much easier in the future generations for other people to give them a chance to get hired. And so right now is have relationships with over 60 businesses in the Clemson community. So again, we have plenty now. People are banging on our door saying we have students available. But we just opened a pilot alumni program up in Greenville, Spartanburg. It's the next major city right by the airport there. And we're doing what we did 16, 17 years ago is we're banging on doors, explaining how good, this workforce is going to be for your business and everything else. And so we're trying to sell each other again because nobody has that experience there. And I think that's going to change in a generation or two once all these kids graduate. 650 kids each year are coming out the door, and they're going to understand the benefits that this population can bring to your workforce.
explain how this works with the instructors going out to meet employers and then connecting the employers with the individual for an interview. Can you please explain that more?
Yeah, they have all our candidates, all our students have to interview for the positions there. And so the employment, so the first thing is we basically rotate them through different industries to see how they're doing in retail, to see how they're doing food services, whatever it may be, hospitality management there. Then afterwards, once they find out, they go, okay, we really think Judith has excelled in retail, whatever else. And so and part of your person-centered planning that we developed for an individual called PCP often or whatever, she goes, maybe you want to work in a high-end clothing store, something along those lines. Well, employment instructor will basically identify several potential locales to work with, and then you're going to set up interviews there. So you've got to interview for that position, basically. So again, nothing's ever given to our students there. And then basically from that position there, you've got to prove yourself, but we're also going to train the employment site. So we're going to make sure that there's mentors available on site. Yeah. So it's not just up to the employment instructor to go out there, but basically is because if that was the case, I'd have to leave an employment instructor there 24/7 whenever I have a student placed there. And so this way is we're going to prepare the site, the work site, to make sure that there's mentors available. So when you have an issue or you don't understand something, well, you go to Joe or you go to, and you have to have more than one person because Joe may be on vacation or sick today. And then who are you going to go to for help? So our job is not only, again, to train, our students, but also to train society. And we're also training the workforce itself. So they understand this, and it's a more successful matching between, our students and their workforce.
So what this does, it moves the online application process aside. This does not work for this population.
Well, we get, and certain things we still have to do online applications and everything else, our employment instructors, but at the same time is we're kind of leading out, we're reaching out and explaining the scenarios because some major corporations don't do anything other than the online components. That's where the employment instructor will come in and finesse that and go, okay, so we are going to complete this. However, understand that Joey has autism, Joey has this disability or what have you there. So we're going to have to make some accommodations there, for the interviews and everything else. So it may not really work well for a Zoom interview with certain students or what have you. And that's
Mm.
kind of where the employment instructor's got to know the student that she's working with and also the requirements of the business to try to help make it work. Because again, and the larger the business, the more challenging it often is because they become more inflexible. As I can get a person in a mom and pop business tomorrow, what have you. But when you start doing an international corporation, I mean, you've got layers and layers of hierarchy to go through often. It makes it more challenging.
So, if that's the case, you're dealing with a major corporation. Is the initial connection between one of your instructors and somebody at the business done first? Do they
Yes.
talk about the individuals they would like to present and then get the green light put in the online applications, but are they flagged
It,
somehow?
it will vary. It will vary from business to business. There is no one standard route to get in. I mean, when you're dealing with industry itself, every business is different.
Yeah.
But essentially, yes. So you're going to have to do the legwork up front to reach out and to coordinate. And many times, but the beauty of the international or the national businesses is, and we'll give an instance. One partner that works wonderful with us, Kroger. For grocery stores, and everything else is
Yep.
well, there's Kroger's all over the region. So when you
Hmm.
move back from South Carolina to Georgia to Florida, wherever it may be, you know, now the hiring manager there knows exactly what your skills are and it transfers to the other
Hmm.
things. So that's the beauty of working with a national organization as opposed to the mom and pops, because even if you run a pizza shop
Yeah.
here, pizza shops maybe run very differently back in New York or some other locale where the young man or woman's going to go back to. And so
Right.
that's the beauty of it is they also have capacity with it. And this is why we helped develop, worked with the Shepherd Hotel.
I
We
read
help
that
with their
online. Yeah.
fundraising. We have basically this, and that was over a tailgate at a football game where one of the gentlemen came in. He goes, I have a daughter with Down syndrome. I've always worked in high end hotels, the 5 star, the 4 and 5 stars, and I think it's very feasible to run an operation with the skeleton crew of traditional workforce with complemented with workforce with disabilities. And that was the idea. And over about 5 years, through fundraising and everything else, they were able to open up the hotel in downtown Clemson, the Shepherd Hotel. And now they have a designated workforce with disabilities. And it's a ground where, again, is capacity. Now my employment instructor can go to one work site, work with a half dozen students or so or more, as opposed to going all over God's creation. One student over here, one student at the other hotel.
Hmm.
And we're appreciative of every job opportunity we get, but for organization structure and and for the sanity of my instructors, it's a little bit more easier for them to visit multiple students at one work site.
Makes
And so that's
sense.
again is the beauty of capacity. And they're opening now. It's been so successful here. They're in the process of opening another hotel at USC in Columbia, South Carolina. And so we have a sister program out there, Carolina Life, very good program, and for say post-secondary education programs. And so again, they're partnering with USC out there for that program.
Just a little aside on this. I was talking to my nephew, and he did something that made me realize there's no there may be no fear factor in terms of creative ideas coming from these individuals if you allow them to be participatory in a creative process, in brainstorming things. And what happened was, I've noticed over a series of years, John would call me and come out with these ideas that were incredibly insightful. And I'm like, oh my God, how did you think of that? Because nobody gives you credit for thinking out of the box like this. And even for this program, Dr. Ryan, he said, Aunt Judy, I thought of a sponsor for the program, Worldwide Wrestling. WWE now. And I said, okay, that's interesting. Why
Well,
did
our
you think?
students would have a great time to go there. Then let me tell you.
Okay, so that's what he said. He said, well, first of all, WWE is involved in Special Olympics and Make a Wish Foundation. And There's storytelling. The whole thing about the wrestling community, it's about storytelling. It's very
Our friends will
visual.
still argue it's real. No, no, no. It's all real.
Well, we can definitely have that argument. But it's funny because Disney movies are very formulaic and they are teaching tools when you're younger for people with autism, for instance. But I just wanted to make this point. First of all, I thought it was brilliant that he came
Yeah,
up with this.
it's a great idea.
And second, he found the phone number in Connecticut to call. And he did call and he introduced himself. So now I have to walk through the door with him. But my point, since we're talking about education, is do not sell these people short.
No, I mean, again, it's not necessarily a disability; it's just different abilities. And we had
Yes.
at Clemson, we had a former chief information officer, and he had a son with autism, high functioning, and everything else. And that was even, he goes, the strengths and many time in technology is they can look at a problem very differently than the traditional mindset, and that come up
Yes.
with very creative answers to
Yes.
solutions that most of us would be extremely frustrated at. And everybody
Yeah.
has a different skill and ability they bring to the table, and it's just allowing them a seat at the table.
Absolutely. And Temple Grandin would be a great,
Example.
well-known case for what she did, her innovations in the beef industry. And she at least had the perseverance to keep pushing when everybody pushed her aside. But I
For
just,
those not familiar, Temple Grandin is an animal husbandry professor. I think it was at Colorado State or something along those lines,
and still
with
there.
autism. Yeah.
She's still speaking. She's still engaged and active. And there's an HBO movie on her and how she went from college to then finding her way within the animal community, and absolutely brilliant. So, yes, let's not sell people short because, I mean, you can have a think tank, to be honest with you, of neurodivergent people and just allowed to, with abandon, create ideas for how to make something better. So I thank you so much. I love your program and I love that you're expanding. Wait a minute. I don't want to fail to say this. Hang in there. So in the summer of 2024, Clemson Life completed its second study abroad trip to Ireland. And you, Dr. Ryan, were named the U.S. Fulbright Scholar to Ireland and collaborated with the Trinity Center for People with Intellectual Disabilities at Trinity College in Dublin.
It was a great experience. Actually, I was just with a colleague from over there, Trinity. We just presented at the World Inclusion Congress in Kazakhstan last week.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we were out there trying to, again, promote programs, post-secondary education programs, a lot of interest, especially with India, New Zealand, Australia. And so just kind of trying to be Johnny Appleseed and, help programs start. We have a book we just published on how to open, run a post-secondary education program. So if you're interested in finding out more, it's available on Amazon, Barnes Noble, and everything else. But that's basically it. Again, is for those families that are interested in these programs, my recommendation is start early to identify them.
Yes.
You go to Think College, they have list for the states, those programs that are available. Only about a third of the programs have a residential component. So you can start looking whether it's 2 year, 4 year, and what their focus is. So I think of it as like colleges back in the 1950s, where everybody had kind of a niche. You were a teaching college, you're an engineering college, or
True.
whatever. You weren't a jack of all trades there. So the average program is still relatively small. It's only about a dozen or so students. We are one of the larger ones, 56 students. But when you're visiting, I would recommend most programs we have open houses each semester, where you can basically, again, come hear from the students, hear from the faculty, hear from the parents about what the program is, what it offers. But I would start looking by middle school to high school to start
Okay.
investigating. And again, given there's only limited number, there's only 362 programs right now, I believe, in the United States. Um, they're competitive to get into. For that simple fact is, there's no reason that every university or college can't have a program, at least a small one. And again, so we're happy to work with people who are interested in starting a program. But other than that, I appreciate your time to help share this information with everybody else. But we have a website, feel free, Clemson Life, and we're happy to share information as many parties as possible.
And we will have this information in the show notes. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, not only for the work that you've been doing, but for taking the time to come on the show, talk to the audience. You're just a godsend. Thank you so much, Dr.
The
Ryan.
instructors are.
And the instructors, you are all a godsend. Thank you so very much for
All
what you're
right.
doing with
Pleasure,
this
pleasure talking
community.
with you, and you have a wonderful week. All the best.
Thank you. All the best. And for everybody listening, we always end the show in this way. In the area of special needs, we all need each other. Thank you so much. And I talk to you next week. Take care.